And today I am so excited to take you through a walk of my soul deck. This deck is, of course, the Goliath Tarot, the second edition. If this is your first time hearing me talk about this deck, I have made an entire other video on how this deck changed my life. You could check it out up in the cards above. That story was a little too long to include in this video, but I still wanted to include it because I thought it was important to explain why this was my soul deck and what it did for me before I even started using it. So I definitely recommend checking out that video. You could do it first or after this video. Before I go any further, I just want to mention that I saw this deck originally on Lisa over at Supportive Tarot's channel. She just eponymously renamed her channel. And when I saw this there, it was such an interesting reaction I had because I'm normally not drawn to black and white decks, but I felt there was something special about this one. So I reached out to Goliath, the creator, and asked if he could send a copy for me to share with you guys. And thankfully he did, because this has become my, as I mentioned, my soul deck, my favorite deck. I have so much to say about it. It came packed beautifully in this black tissue paper and with this little butterfly, which I just love, the symbol of transformation, and you can see it all on the box. So just gorgeous. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So starting out with the box, I love the way that this is presented. It is a gorgeous two-piece box. It's like a game, the way it's presented. And on the back, we have some sample card images, which is very nice. Still very indie. You don't see too much clutter on here. And when you open it up, it is a two-piece box. And I actually really like this because for the size and heft of this box, it is quite an experience to open it. So it kind of makes it feel a little larger than life. And then you take away the top, and here's what we have inside. We have the guidebook, which I will talk about in just a minute. Lifts out with this gorgeous ribbon. And before I even lift that out, let me use that to hold in the cards. You can see the inside of the box. We have the moon here. The inside is also just stunning. It's got some snippets of other cards on it. So removing the guidebook, we have this ribbon. So we actually have 3 ribbons in here. We remove the guidebook. And then we have this beautiful velvet lining, so luxurious. And this is an upgrade over the first edition. Goliath really listened to feedback and spared no expense on making this deck the most beautifully produced he possibly could. And so this was the ribbon to lift out the book. And then on either side, we have the deck split in 2. and we have individual ribbons to lift out those halves of the deck. So I am going to talk about the cards, but first allow me to talk to you briefly about this guidebook. This guidebook is probably the most accurate guidebook I have ever gotten with any deck. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, really. I don't know if you could see that, but I am. Now, Goliath, who wrote this, he's not just a tarot creator or a tarot reader, he's also a medium. And this book, I'm telling you, it's the cards themselves speak directly to my soul, but this speaks directly to the truth of a situation. I've read a lot of amazing guidebooks. Some, for example, in mass market publications, I tend to love Barbara Moore as a writer, and she explains tarot so clearly, but this does so much more than that. It cuts right into the heart of a situation, and it is so accurate and personal. It's like it's just for you in so many ways. Not only does the artwork get me, but this guidebook gets me too. Now, first, let me just speak to the elephant in the room here. My copy of the guidebook is a little bit pixelated. I will zoom in here so you could see for yourself that pixelation. I just want to mention that because I don't want to recommend a deck to you and then have that come as a surprise. However, I did reach out to the creator and he said it's only a very small handful of books that were like this. Now, if I had paid full price for this, I don't know if I would have contacted him for a replacement, mainly because it is kind of an interesting quirk and not all of the second editions have this. So I feel like it's kind of special, but also because this deck is made to focus on shadow work. And your shadow is all the things that you try to keep out of the light, right? Everybody has a shadow, but there's some parts of us that we would rather have never see the light of day. They stay in the darkness, yet they follow us everywhere. And this deck is specifically made to help us work through our issues that we hide in the shadows, those parts of ourselves that we'd rather not deal with, but it does it in an accessible and even friendly way. The deck is not macabre as so many other shadow decks can be. And other decks might claim to be shadow decks just because they have a darker palette or darker images, but they don't really help you embrace your own shadow in a way that's not intimidating. But this deck does it all. So I mention all of that to say that even if my copy is pixelated, I kind of like that because even though I'm a perfectionist, this is telling me, it's the reminder, don't judge a book by its cover and really embrace the flaws because it's part of what makes it unique. Embrace what makes it different. So one of the things that I do love about this guidebook is it is a behemoth. It is 80,000 characters, or words, not characters, long. And you could see here as I open it up, this is massive, right? It's absolutely massive. The minor arcana tend to have a full page each, and as you can see, it is very tiny handwriting, but it is quite, not handwriting, a very tiny font, typeface, that's what I meant to say, but it's very legible. It's very easy to read. So you have a page for each minor arcana, along with a huge image of the card, which is beautiful. If you compare it to the actual card, just lovely. You can absolutely curl up in bed and read this book, even printed in this orientation without the cards, and enjoy the experience. And the major arcana, like here we have the Fool, have quite a bit of information. You can just, honestly, if you wanted to, you could just use this book as bibliomancy. You know, flip through it, pick one, and just read it. And even though this is a tarot deck, I find that I don't often draw more than one card unless I'm dealing with some really big life issue, because there's already so much meat on this bone to dig into that you don't need any more. You don't need any more. There's already more than enough. And often by the time I'm halfway through the page, I've found the answer I'm looking for. Let's take a quick look at the guidebook and what it goes through. So He dedicated it to his original partner for this book. I believe they ended up splitting ways, but it's nice that he still included him in here. And then we have our table of contents. If you are a Virgo like me and you're a little bit of a perfectionist, you will notice there are some little typos in here. Like you'll see the suit of wands is mentioned twice here instead of the suit of swords. You'll see occasionally the end of a sentence might be cut off in here. That said, I'm usually a stickler for that, and I don't care. The reason why I don't care is because this is written by Goliath himself, and I think he sat down and he channeled these readings, and I don't think I'd want a single word to change. Everything in here is incredible, and again, those imperfections are just part of our shadow, and I love the character it gives the book. I mean, this is truly a labor of love. This is him in book form, right? Like I actually really find these things endearing. So let me just say, even if you're a person who does not usually reference guidebooks, I highly recommend you take a look through this one. I personally read it cover to cover. It's part of why it took me a long time to get this review up, because not only is it just shy of 100,000 words, but it's deep. There's a lot to think about in this guidebook. There's a lot. And so I didn't just want to churn through the pages and flip through them too quickly. I wanted to read and absorb and digest and reflect before I would continue going. I am going to give you a sample reading from this deck and give you an example of one card from here because it's so long. I can't read this for all, like for a 3-card draw. It's too much. You guys will get bored and leave. But that is the book. It is a really nice matte finish, great size. I love the fact, here we have a picture of Goliath. Art is how I see myself, how I express myself. It's my interpretation of the world I'm in. Art and creation are the only things I never get sick of. They heal me and lift me, keeping me buoyant every time I'm down or feeling like I'm sinking. I invite you into my world, my very own Tarot Manifesto. All the cards in this deck talk to each other and hold a fragment of my heart and soul in them. This is my gift to you. Welcome to my Goliath Tarot Deck. So you can even see that mine's a little scuffed up because this is already well worn, because anytime I do a reading with this deck, I use this book. I don't have to. I get a ton from just the cards, but I'm telling you, the messages in here are something else. And I actually love that it's printed in this format because it makes it feel like a treasure map as you're reading through it. It makes it feel like a game. What an awesome experience it gives you. So now let's take a look at the cards themselves. Now you can see that this is a thick boy. It's thick, okay? It's also big. It's almost the size of my whole hand. For comparison, let's pull out my borderless Rider-Waite here. You can see the size. Now this is a lot smaller than the first edition was, so it's a lot more manageable and easy to work with, but it is still big. It's a big boy. It's beefy. One cool thing I noticed is because of how it was stored in the box, the decks were cut in 2 halves. In fact, I could tell exactly where half of the deck is right here. And what I love is that the grain of the cut goes one way on one half and it's slightly different on the other half. Why do I love this? Normally something like that would kind of drive me nuts. Again, perfectionist. But I absolutely love that with this deck because it makes it almost feel like a wood grain. It's got such a texture to it. I really love it. It is a soft touch matte laminate finish. You do see it is edged in black. This is black ink. Now I showed a flip through already because there are so many cards, but I want to talk about a few things. Quality is amazing. They're not sticky, but as with all matte cards, there's a bit of friction unless they're anti-scratch matte. But this type of soft touch matte, there's always a bit of friction in sliding the cards. it does go away as you use the deck more. So that is a positive. It does become easier to handle, but as you could see right there, sometimes you get some clumping, but it's nothing that's a deal breaker. And I want to show you just a handful of my favorite cards. Now, this Tower card, I have a whole video on how this one card changed my life. It changed my outlook on the meaning of this card. It changed my outlook on how I view myself and how I judge myself and the amount of acceptance and care I treat myself with. This did so much for me. It's unbelievable. And Goliath does have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to these cards. And for the Tower alone, I believe he has 2 videos. Each one is an hour long going over this card. So you can get a ton of depth on these cards. Like this deck is deep. It does everything you could want a deck to do. I've mentioned if my house were to catch on fire again, I talked about that in the other video. If there was one deck I could save, this would be the one. So this is a card I absolutely love. I showed a few other cards that really spoke to me in my other video. So what I want to do in this video is just draw your attention to the, oh God, this is another one, the 10 of Swords. Just look at this. Oh, so powerful. I love that each card has a title too. The titles, I didn't mention this, the titles on these cards add so much to the interpretation of the deck. Usually I'd find that distracting, not here. These titles are everything. Each card is truly a work of art, and it feels that way. It feels like you're getting to hold graphite drawings in your hand, which is, you know, you never get to do that without smudging the paper. And this is such a treat to be able to hold the artwork this way. But what I would like to do is show you some of the extra cards that are included in this deck, because I believe it's 95 cards, beautiful brown backs, not quite black. Like this, but we've got that butterfly with the transformation. How beautiful, right? Such attention to detail in this. And this nice earthy brown with this sort of yellow green, not gold, but that sort of coloring to it. So I just want to show you some of the extra cards in the deck really quick. So here we have the Caution, the Heedful Mouse. One of my favorite cards in the deck is in here. The Shadow Dreamcatcher. The Expansion, or the Shedding Snake. This is my favorite card probably in any tarot deck. I think this is so sweet. The Sacred Heart, the heart and soul of Goliath. That's the creator. God, look at the goosebumps. Why? I can't. It's so... It hits me that strongly because it's not just lip service. You can tell he put his heart and soul into this. And to actually have it represented in a card, it really does make you feel like you have a connection with the creator of the deck. It's also very vulnerable of him to put himself out there like that. So I just think this is such a nice token of all the effort that he put into this. The Karmic Release. This is our cover art that we have on the box. The Sacred Karmic Deer. Nature, the Seed of Life. Now this one actually really spoke to me. So the Heart and Soul of Goliath was my favorite card of the extra cards, but this one also spoke to me and kind of let me know this deck was for me, because I just posted another video showing you guys around Korea, and while I was there I went to a Buddhist temple, and one of the things I like to do for my spiritual journey, as I've opened up to this with my boyfriend, is to, if I go to a special place, I don't like to buy a souvenir or something. I like to collect something from the earth. Maybe it's a stick, maybe it's a rock, or maybe it's a pine cone. Nature's Seed of Life. And I really like this because that place, that Buddhist temple, is where I hope to get married. And so it was just really special for me to take this and to see it represented in this card. You don't see pine cones very often. And in fact, the pine tree is the national tree of Korea. And so to see this seed of life, it just made me feel like I'm on the right track. It was reaffirming. It was one of the many, many ways I felt like this deck spoke directly to my heart and soul. And it tells me that I'm on the right track for a new beginning. So it just meant so much to me to see this. I'll put that back in my little box, my little origami box of treasures. Then we have the Sacred Fire, the Karmic Soul, tribe, the family. I love this one too. The hidden inner strength, the shadow cat. Look, here we have a cat, and then you see his howling. I don't think that's a lion, but maybe a panther. You see his inner wild spirit. Masks, the hidden wolf. This looks like a wolf in sheep's clothing. The shadow self. I also love this card, the dark inner swamp. I feel like those titles add so much to it. This card has no title and no meaning in the guidebook either. So interesting card. This one is fully up to your interpretation. It could make for a good significator card as well. The Shaman, the medicine healer. The Star Seed, the Demiurge. The Sage, purity. And I love this because it's a little bundle of sage. And to me, I get a sense of wisdom out of it. It also looks like we have a pine cone in the background there too, and a pine cone here as well, which just ties together for me. And purity, which is like that new seed of life, right? And then we have two cards, which I love. You could use just these cards, the yes and no card. How awesome, right? These are perfect to use, you know, with a pendulum if you want, and Goliath explains how to do that right in the guidebook. So I love these because while this whole massive deck is fabulous, sometimes you just need a quick yes or no, and these are perfect for that. So really love these. And just a quick note, if we were to look at the guidebook, you can see that those extra cards are in here. So there's that. And then I want to show you how amazing this deck is for readings. I want to show you that even though it's so deep, my God, can it give you crystal clear readings. This is the most accurate reading deck. I know I feel silly pointing out goosebumps, 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 but I'm so connected with this dang deck. I'm telling you, I get it. It gets me. But I had this really amazing reading. This is just a little bit of a personal thing. So I had a disagreement with my boyfriend. We're moving in together soon. We're planning our future together. And I have my beautiful baby cat, Zoe, and he's allergic to cats. Sometimes we have disagreements over her. And one day, one of those disagreements really got to me. And I almost never look to the cards for myself, or I only look for a general message. I almost never read predictively for myself because I generally don't want to know my future. I don't want, even though I don't believe it's written in stone, I don't want a reading to sway me. I'll do it for other people if that's what they want, but for me, that's not usually what I'm looking for. But this one time I made an exception, and I asked the deck, what is my future for me and Ed? Now, bear in mind at this time, I was worried, am I going to have to rehome Zoe? I can't do that. And then what would happen with me and Ed? How could we possibly work through that? Let me show you what cards I got. I forgot to mention, by the way, that these extra cards you can use with the deck, or you could take them out set and use them separately. I personally leave them with the deck. And when I asked this question, the cards were with the deck. So I was sitting there really feeling a little heartbroken, feeling torn, really for the first time in a long time, questioning my future to its core. And I asked the cards what my future with Ed would be. And before I flip these over, let me just tell you something. Whenever there is a cat in a card deck, that's always my significator for Zoe or my cats. Whenever my personal significator for me is the Queen of Swords, because it's the card I feel most accurately describes me. And my significator for Ed, because time and time again this card has come up as him in readings, is the Knight of Pentacles. However, when I've told him that and explained what the card is, he never wants to be the Knight of Pentacles. He wants to be the King of Pentacles. That's what he wants his future to be. So I asked the deck, what is my future with Ed going to be? I wasn't sure. I was feeling a little heartbroken. I didn't know. And so what does the deck tell me? I get the cat. There's Zoe. I get the Queen of Swords. There's me. And then I get the King of Pentacles. There's Ed. It was crazy. It answered my question right away, because as deep as you can get with the card, sometimes the answer just screams out at you. My future is with Ed and Zoe. And they came right in this order too. Like I was in the middle, and my life is going to be surrounded by my two loves. So it was amazing. And I do want to read to you the description for one of the cards. And I'm going to do it for the Queen of Swords, because when I read this description from this reading, it really spoke right to me. It was like, yep, this one's for you. Because if you were to write this and say it was a biography of me, I would say it's accurate. So let me read that for you. So here we go with the Queen of Swords. I love that I don't even have to hold the card here because the image in the book is bigger. You have your keywords. You also have the reversed keywords here, which is really great since this deck does focus on shadow meanings. But here we go. The Queen of Swords, much like the King of Swords, is a very strong forward thinker, but prefers to be more alone in her home life, and privacy is paramount to her. This is something that I struggle with in my relationships. She opts more towards the quiet, simple life, and often when I see this card, it will indicate that this older female energy is now entering a phase in her life where she no longer wants to be in a fast-paced, chaotic life. Also true. This is a strong and powerful woman. Why, thank you. That certainly does not seek nor need the appreciation or adulation of others. She would rather reach inwards to her own memories and life to reflect and learn, and better process her own life. This is a harder woman who really prefers the company of herself and her animals rather than others. That spoke exactly to the heart of my question, and it made me loll. Like, I literally laughed out loud when I read that. I was like, oh my God, this is like the main point of contention that comes up in my relationship, because cats aren't very big in Korea for most people here, and pets generally weren't that big until about a decade ago. So, you know, there's definitely the mentality humans before pets, and for me, sometimes my animals come first. So she likes to know about the who, what, when, where, and how of every situation, and there's a lot more to this. Including explaining the image, explaining the artwork and its symbolism. But I just wanted to stop there because that's exactly what I needed for my reading. I got that confirmation as soon as I came to that one sentence. Yep, this is the card that speaks to both other cards in the reading. This is the answer I was looking for. This is definitely the answer that's meant for me. So the incredible thing about this deck is, even though it is my favorite deck, my soul deck, one of the coolest things about it is I find I don't need it that often. I need it when I have hard-hitting questions, when I need to search for reasons for my unhappiness, when I need to search to work through something. No matter how unexpected, this deck comes through for me. But then it answers that question and I'm able to put it away until I need it again. It's like that hard hitter. It's like you have a friend who's a lawyer that you don't ask every little question to, but when you have a big ass question, you ask that friend, right? You pull out the big guns. That's what this deck is for me. It's definitely a favorite summer deck. You're going to see this soon coming up in some of my favorite videos. I'm certainly going to be using this more as we go into the darker months, but especially with COVID right now, I've been using a lot of time to work on myself, and this deck absolutely came in clutch for me. But enough about me. Is this the deck for you? Who would I recommend it for? Well, let's start with the production quality. It is gorgeous, phenomenal. You couldn't ask for more. everything you could want in an amazing deck is here. Now, I do feel a little shallow talking about production quality when it comes to a deck like this, because it could be printed on printer paper and I would pay more for it than he charges, because that's how much it's worth to me. But that production quality is all there. It is gorgeous. So if you like the artwork, do not worry, you will not be let down by the production quality. I have not been able to stop talking about this deck and recommending it to people on Facebook. As far as the readings, it is the most accurate deck I have. It can go as shallow or as deep as I want, and I treat this deck with the utmost respect. I have mentioned that I feel this deck completely gets me. I'm not the only person who feels that way, and I'd wager a bet that if you were to get this deck, you'd end up feeling that way too. I'd say it's just as good for beginners as advanced people, but it is for people who are looking for a deeper experience. There are plenty of shallow, superficial decks out there that you'll get tired of quickly, but this is a deck that can easily last you for the rest of your life, which is why it is the one deck I would save out of my collection of about 100 if I had to choose, because this has so much depth, so much to it, that even if you don't want to use the guidebook, reading it intuitively, you can pull so much information from these cards. But also, if you do use the guidebook, wow, 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 what an experience. It's incredible. I am pretty sure Goliath just sat down and literally channeled these messages as he wrote. It's very stream of consciousness, yet so accurate. It's incredible. So hands down, yes, I recommend it. It will only be available for purchase directly from his website. So I'm going to leave a link to all the information for this deck below. Some information on the deck, to Goliath's YouTube channel. I highly recommend you subscribe, because even if you don't get this deck, it is a wealth of information. It is a tremendous resource for anything tarot related. His interpretations and channeling on there are fantastic. Again, I'll leave a link to my other video where I talked about this a little bit more, about how this deck changed my life. And ultimately, I recommend this deck higher than any deck I've ever recommended. This is it. This is my recommendation. If you could only get one tarot deck and you want some depth and you're not afraid of the shadows, what would it be? It would be this one, because it's not all shadows. Without shadow, there's no light. You need the shadow to appreciate the light. So this can help in so many ways. So I adore this deck and highly recommend it. What is your favorite deck, and what was your favorite part of this deck? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.